On June 22, 1941, Germany and its allies launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Almost exactly 129 years earlier, Napoleon launched his invasion of Russia, which ended in a historic defeat. So what did Hitler and his inner circle think about Napoleon's invasion, and what lessons did they learn from it? Let's find out. Now, before Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, Adolf Hitler showed a lively interest in Napoleon. According to Hitler's bodyguard, Willy Schneider, at a private reception in early 1939, Hitler even compared himself to the French emperor, along with Bismarck and other historical figures. After France surrendered in 1940, Hitler visited Paris and spent some time at Les Invalides visiting Napoleon's tomb, and reportedly said that it was the proudest moment of his life. When Hitler turned his attention to the Soviet Union and invasion planning began, comparisons to Napoleon became less appealing, since Nazi leadership wanted to avoid any association with the failed 1812 invasion. Even so, in March 1941, General Heinrizi, who would later play a central role in the defense of Berlin in 1945, couldn't help but comment on what he saw as a common fate. It seems almost to conform to the laws of history that the struggle against England leads to the road to Moscow. It was not different for Napoleon. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels often mentioned Napoleon and the 1812 campaign, especially in his personal diary. His words reveal an unspoken fear that the German invasion might end up like that of the French Empire in 1812. In fact, even in spring 1941, he was preparing to counteract the inevitable parallels that might be drawn. From the psychological point of view, the whole affair raises some difficulties. Comparisons with Napoleon, etc. But we will easily overcome all this thanks to anti-Bolshevism. On June 16, 1941, less than a week before the attack, he might have been trying to reassure himself with a confident prediction. Ours will be a massive attack on a very large scale. No doubt the strongest we have ever seen in history. The example of Napoleon will not repeat itself. He carried on in a similar vein just a few days later. It is certainly true that, irony of fate, we began our battle against Bolshevism on the same date Napoleon crossed the Russian frontier. But we are not just entering with infantry, we also have motorized tanks, and it will be infinitely easier for us to cross the vast spaces of the East. Goebbels wasn't the only one who thought that since the invasion force of 1941 contained motor vehicles, it would be more successful than the Grande Armée. Although, of course, the German army was only partially mechanized and still had more than 600,000 horses. Romanian dictator Ion Antonescu also shared this view on the eve of Barbarossa, saying that comparisons with 1812 were, quote, out of place. Once Operation Barbarossa got underway, some observers thought that Hitler's strategic decision-making was influenced by a desire to avoid Napoleon's fate. Hitler decided against one primary drive towards Moscow, as Napoleon had ended up doing, and instead approved a plan for three main thrusts into the Soviet Union. There were many other factors that went into this decision, including military and economic considerations, but General Alfred Jodl still felt that psychologically, 1812 played a role in Hitler's thinking about a concentrated strike on the Soviet capital. The Führer has an instinctive aversion to adopting the same course as Napoleon. Hitler also brought up the 1812 campaign when he met with Croatian fascist leader Slatko Kvaternik in July 1941 and told him that Stalin, not Hitler, would suffer the same fate as Napoleon. A strange statement to make that has caused historians to connect this statement to Hitler's underlying uncertainty about Barbarossa. When German armies faced a crisis outside of Moscow in the winter of 1941-42, the disastrous retreat of the Grande Armée in the winter of 1812 again seems to have come up in German circles, and Hitler spoke to it in his message to the beleaguered Army Group Center on December 20th. He urged them not to pull back in the face of Russian attacks in freezing conditions, as he felt a retreat would be even worse than holding on. Talk of Napoleon's retreat is threatening to become reality. Thus, there must only be withdrawal where there is a prepared position further in the rear. Months later, Hitler said that he had a clear answer to a German general who advised retreat from Moscow. It was plain to me that retreat would have meant the fate of Napoleon. As the war turned against Germany and the front lines approached German soil, the Nazi regime also began to draw on the Napoleonic period for its propaganda efforts. The struggle of Prussia against Napoleonic France, and later also other German states in 1813, was known as the Wars of Liberation in Germany, and this symbol of popular uprising for a German nation was now put to use. In his famous Total War speech on February 18, 1943, at the Berlin Sportpalast, Goebbels ended his diatribe with a line from a patriotic poem originally written as a call for Germans to rise against Napoleon. Now people arise, and storm burst forth. Goebbels was also thinking of the Napoleonic era during an excursion to the Alps in 1944. In a conversation with colleagues, he said that he felt that Hitler's generals were failing him, and that the Führer instead needed a Scharnhorst or a Gneisenau, two famous Prussian generals who had fought against Napoleon. And when the Red Army was nearing Germany's borders in the second half of 1944, German propaganda again turned to the Napoleonic period to produce a film called Colburn. The movie portrays the successful defense of a Baltic German village against French forces under Napoleon, thanks to a popular uprising. At the same time, Nazi Germany was preparing its own population for a nation-in-arms defense against the Soviets. This took the form of the Volkssturm, a militia mostly of men over 40 and some teenagers, who were meant to stop the Red Army. The Volkssturm was created on October 18, 1944, the 131st anniversary of Napoleon's defeat at the Battle of Leipzig, by a coalition including Prussia. If you're interested in Napoleon's invasion of Russia, you can watch our 3-hour documentary about it right here on YouTube. And if you want to learn more about Hitler's downfall, you can check out our 4.5-hour documentary series about the Battle of Berlin in 1945, 16 Days in Berlin, exclusively on Nebula or Patreon. I'm Jesse Alexander, and this is Real Time History, the only YouTube history channel that won't conform to the laws of history.